Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Pinstriped Prospects Podcast. This is episode 51, and I am Amari Brown, and I'll be your host for this evening. As in addition to being this evening's host, I'm also the beat writer for the High A Tampa Tarpons. As always, this edition of the Pinstriped Prospects Podcast is sponsored by the great people at Velocity 5 Sports Restaurant and Bar in Sterling, Virginia. Joining me this evening on our illustrious panel is Mr. Tommy Romanelli. Tommy, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm in Miami, Florida. It's 80 degrees. I'm pretty sure it snowed in Scranton yesterday, so I'm about as good as I can be right now. Hope you're doing well, Amari.
Awesome. I'm doing great. Thanks for being on with us. And for also joining us is our Trenton AA expert, Matthew Cardos. Matthew, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on, Amari? Thanks for having me. Glad to be on talking some baseball with you tonight.
Awesome. Glad to have you, Matt. And last but certainly not least, our fearless leader, Mr. Robert Pimpsner. Rob, how you doing?
I am doing well. I can't really complain. It's great to be back on the podcast. I know it's been a little while, so let's get going.
All right. Sounds good to me. So we're going to start off with the big club, the Yankees. And after a tough series in Boston, the Yankees got back on track with a win in Detroit. In Detroit, we also saw the return of Aaron Hicks, and in his return, he belted 2 home runs as the offense put up 8 runs against the Tigers. The remaining games were unfortunately postponed due to inclement weather, but we were actually able to get a preview of the damage of, the type of damage that a semi-healthy lineup could do. How much of an impact do you guys think that Aaron Hicks has in this lineup? Rob, we're going to start with you.
Well, I think we saw it right away when he came back. Inside the park home run and then a traditional home run right after that. He is a big part of this Yankees lineup, and he's a guy that the Yankees got for practically nothing. I know it's been said to death, but it's just one of those amazing signings, and it proves when you stick with a young guy, let him play through his struggles in the major leagues, he could do something. And you also have to remember those lessons with all these other young guys coming up. So I think once you get this team healthy, you're not going to worry about those one or two rookies that are going to be there that are going to struggle. Because once Giancarlo Stanton starts hitting, Gary Sanchez starts hitting, you got Didi, Aaron Hicks, Aaron Judge, you get all those guys hitting, your lineup's going to be formidable and unstoppable pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Matt, what do you have to add?
I think he's just such a massive upgrade compared to what they were throwing out there while he was injured. Guys like Jace Peterson and Shane Robinson and guys like that who you pretty much got off the scrap heap, never expecting them to have to contribute at any point to the major league level. Those are guys that are taking at-bats that are valuable at-bats in the major leagues. So when you could throw a guy like Hicks back into that lineup, a guy that's versatile it's got power to all fields, power to the gaps, he's got good speed, and he plays great defense. I mean, he's a starting player on any team in Major League Baseball and a high-caliber player when he gets at-bats. So, I mean, he's just such a massive upgrade. Lengthens that lineup. And Rob brought up a really good point that we've seen the younger players struggle a little bit here, and that's because the burden has been put on them to carry the load while all of these guys have been injured. We haven't really seen a healthy lineup where these young guys aren't relied on so much. So I think it's a testament now that guys are starting to get healthy, and we're getting some of these guys back now that you could kind of ease the burden and let these young guys just play without having to carry the load. So I think it's a massive addition for the Yankees to get him back.
Agreed. Strong points. Tommy?
Yeah, I actually think that he's one of the more important parts of this team overall. I've said it before on the podcast. I think that Hicks is a 5-tool player. He can do, his defense is outstanding. He has the best arm in the outfield and probably the majors, one of them. But the depth that he adds to the lineup, even when everybody comes back, is really going to help everybody else get better. And like Matt said, you're throwing guys like Jace Peterson and Shane Robinson out there. I mean, I expected to see both of those guys in Scranton here all year, not in the majors, especially not in the first few weeks. But so, like Rob said too, you saw what he can do. Last year, he was an important part of the lineup. He won some games on his own. I think that he's a piece that you really need in the lineup every day, just because of what he brings to the table. So it was a massive addition to the team when he came back, for sure.
Yeah, you could definitely see the impact that Hicks brought, and it was obviously, like we just said, it was an immediate impact, and it kind of makes you wonder what could be. Had it not been for the string of injuries for this team. So with CC scheduled to make his return Thursday, we got Drury that took batting practice, live batting practice, which is a big thing, and Clint Frazier getting primed for game action. What are some of the realistic expectations we could see with this team over the next month? So, Tommy, we'll actually bring you right back.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to slowly bring piece by piece back, and you're going to see this team relax a bit. And it's purely because of it lengthens the lineup. Because right now, once you get past Sanchez in the lineup, now you're kind of just waiting around until Gardner comes back up, maybe like four or five spots later. So it's going to let everybody breathe a little bit, know that they don't have to come through every single time in order to put some runs on the board. So all these injuries that are slowly healing is going to make the team better. And I think that with all the expectations on them now in general, having all these injuries, this is probably the worst time to have it, because coming right out of the gate, everybody's excited about the team. Now you're kind of feeling the pressure, like you have to win right out of the gate. Had they come out and went 10-1 and had these guys and only dropped a piece or two, they'd probably be playing a little bit better now, because the pressure wouldn't be there, and they kind of know in their mind, like, yeah, we can do this. So it's going to work itself out, and every addition that comes back just by these guys getting healthy is going to be huge. Even guys like Clint Frazier and Thairo Estrada, who's just came to you. So I mean, it's going to be huge for the team.
Yeah, I really think so. What is your take on that, Matt?
Yeah, kind of just to bounce off of Tommy's point. I think all these injuries were obviously unexpected, but they all happened at one time, and they all happened right out of the gate. Especially with expectations so high, coming so close to the World Series last year. Obviously bringing in a new manager, and pulling the trigger on the trade for Stanton. Expectations were through the roof. So to come out of the gate playing average ball and losing piece by piece, not only at the major league level, but at the minor league level, having some of the top depth go down. I think Rob wrote an awesome article the other day on pinstripedprospects.com. I think the Yankees have 40 guys system-wide on the DL. That's almost 2 whole affiliates worth of players that are on the DL. So obviously that's unexpected, and I don't care how good you are, having 40 players system-wise on the DL is not a storm any team can weather. So I think the Yankees are hoping to slowly work these guys in piece by piece, and still be in contention when they get back, which I think they will. But I also don't think the Yankees thought the Red Sox would get off to such a hot start. And I mean, these guys only lose once every 12 or 13 days, it seems like. So they've dug themselves a little bit of hole with losing all these guys. So any piece that they get back is a welcomed addition, whether it's a guy that's just a bench contributing piece or it's a guy they project to play every day. Anybody that they could get back and healthy is definitely an added boost. So I think they're looking at anybody that they could get back is a small victory at this point.
Yeah, definitely. We have to find a lot of moral victories at this point, but I think the depth of this organization from top to bottom has definitely been tested. So there's not many teams that could probably withstand all these injuries. Rob, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think once you get all these guys back and healthy, this team's going to be unstoppable. Because like we've said to death right now so far, is this team is coming in with a large amount of injuries, 40 total players on the disabled list between the upper level of the minors at the top of the 4 full season leagues and the major league roster. That includes 12 guys that are on the MLB 40-man roster right now are on the disabled list. So that's just a huge amount of injuries just to deal with. The team with the second most injuries is the Texas Rangers, and they have 38 throughout their entire system. And then there's several other systems that have 33 players out throughout their entire system. But it's just incredible because we talked a lot about the depth the Yankees had coming into this season. And the Yankees traded away some of that depth, like Jake Cave and some others. I think what you will see is once this team is healthy and all these players come back, that they're really going to be a different team on that field. Because no matter what, when you're dealing with 40-plus players hurt, it's going to take something out of you. And I think the amount of injuries is really affecting the younger guys on the team. So if all these guys are hurt and a lot of these guys aren't pulling their weight in the major leagues, there's going to be a lot of pressure on those young kids to get it done. And I don't see that changing if Gleyber Torres replaces Tyler Wade at second base. In fact, it could hurt Gleyber Torres because he's going to have that pressure on himself. But once these guys come back healthy and you get Giancarlo Stanton hitting, he's doing what he does every year. He's a slow starter, and he's playing up north for the first time. He's used to playing in Miami. Let him work out his kinks, and then he'll become unstoppable. Honestly, I still think he's going to be a much better player than he was last year. He's going to be DHing a lot more, so he's more of a chance for him to stay healthy. And he's going to be able to adjust. I know he's struggling in Yankee Stadium. I know fans are booing him left and right, and rightfully so. Let's face it, he's sucked so far at Yankee Stadium. On the road, he's a completely different player. But at Yankee Stadium, he's sucked so far. And he knows it. He understands it. He's a professional, and he's going to make the changes to get things done. And I think for the Yankees, one thing they need to really focus on is getting that starting pitching. Because with the starting pitching faltering the way it is, that bullpen is pretty much going to be depleted, and it is depleted. That depth, that bullpen depth we had coming into the season is gone. There is only two players that are not on the 25-man roster that are on the 40-man roster right now, and that's Jonathan Holder and Jonathan Loizaga. They're in the minors. All the other pitchers are either on the disabled list or in the major leagues. So we have no bullpen depth to draw from, and that's going to hurt us because we're supposed to have this monster bullpen.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree. And just looking at, just the struggles of this team, things like, players like Tyler Wade, Miguel Andujar, Andujar was hitting under 200. He's starting to get it together right now. But we definitely want to, transition into Tyler Wade, who's batting .091, and Neil Walker, who's only batting .188. Both of those guys are underperforming at the plate. And it's a two-part question for the panel, guys. One, do you think it's time for a demotion of Tyler Wade? And two, should we start considering Ronald Torreyes, who's hitting over 300, as an everyday option at second base? Matt, we're going to start with you. What do you think?
I mean, I covered Tyler Wade in 2016 in his only year in Double-A, and I mean, he was the best player on that Trenton roster, and that was a talented roster. Guys like Dustin Fowler, Miguel Andujar. I mean, he was the heart and soul of that team. He's hit at every level of the minors. He's hit in Double-A. He's hit every time he's in Triple-A. He hits. He's had limited opportunities in the major leagues last year, and obviously it's a small sample this year, but just hasn't hit at the big league level in the small samples that he's gotten. But I think right now, while you have so many people injured, I think this is the time, like Rob kind of said, you kind of have to let these young guys work through it and figure it out. Sending Tyler Wade to AAA again for the third time, what is he going to prove there? He hits 330 every time he's there. What is he going to do? Go hit 330 again? And then in June and July, you're going to want to bring him up and see what he's got again. So it's like he's kind of proven all that he could prove in the minors. Is this kid the real deal? I don't know, but you got to let him figure it out and find out if he is the real deal or not. I mean, this is a vital time, especially with guys like Gleyber Torres knocking on the door and Tyro Estrada getting healthy now. He might become part of the equation eventually as we go forward. So if Tyler Wade's a player that you worked to get to increase his versatility and make him a value part of what you want to do going forward, I think they owe it to him to let him kind of work through this and at least give him extended time. I don't know that 3 weeks of the season is enough to tell me that Tyler Wade can't play in the major leagues. If you let him play 4 or 5 times a week and we're sitting here in July and he's hitting .091, then I think it's time to send him to AAA and figure it out down there. But I think they owe it to themselves to at least let him try and work through this, especially in the early going while there's so many injuries, to let him try and figure this thing out.
Yeah, I agree. Patience is going to be a big key right now, especially when all these guys are hurt. And you got some young guys, some young good prospects that we all know that can definitely contribute. So, Tommy, what is your take on that? Because you got to watch Tyler Wade last year.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I mean, last year when he was with Scranton, other than Dustin Fowler, he would be my pick for, just the most dynamic player on the team. I mean, Fowler was a spark, but Tyler Wade was right there behind him. And the thing about Tyler Wade is he has a big personality, and he is a confident player, and he's a guy that just cares a lot. So right now, again, going back to the depth that we're seeing, and after the struggles that he had last year, I mean, and again, that was in such a limited sample size, but New York fans will be New York fans, and everybody wrote him off after that. So he cares so much that I'm sure he wanted to come right out of the gate and show that he is ready for the majors. And with the added pressure of, having to fill in and be a person to get things started for the Yankees while these injuries were occurring, he's probably pressing a lot, I'd have to imagine, just because of all those things. But I agree. Especially, like, one of my things was when Luis Severino was struggling in 2016, I was not a fan of continually sending him back to AAA. I thought that they should put him in the bullpen. Forget what happened with Jabba. That was an anomaly. But it's much better for him to work on his stuff and tweak his mechanics and see if his changeup is going to get better from the bullpen where he's facing major league hitters, as opposed to guys he's just going to blow away anyway. So it doesn't do Wade any good to see if he actually is major league potential by having him in Scranton. So I think that he needs to stay on the roster. If anything, I would say that Neil Walker is more in the bubble, mostly just because, Stephen Drew-esque, he didn't really have a spring training. So maybe he just doesn't have it this year, and he's expendable. He's a 1-year deal, $5 million. Like, they could DFA him, but I think that Wade, especially with the versatility he brings, needs to be on the roster. Now, is he a starting player soon? Probably not, if he continues like this. But at the very least, I think he needs to be on the bench.
Definitely, for sure.
And to answer the second part of your choice, right now I would play Torres because, I mean, the guy, every time he goes in there, he does something good. I don't know if I've ever seen him actually have, like, a bad game. So at the moment, yeah, Torres should be your starting second baseman. But I think that we're starting to get to a point where Gleyber's killing it in Scranton. So you're going to see possibly him come up to see what he can do. And if not, maybe Tyro Estrada. But eventually something needs to give with the team, and they have to do what's going to be best for them to bring a spark to the team and get them really going.
Yeah. I think we can all agree. Rob, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I'm a big fan of letting the kids learn and play in the major leagues because they need to learn and play in the major leagues. We saw it happen with Judge. We saw it happen with Aaron Hicks. We saw it happen with Luis Severino. You need to consistently play in the major leagues and face major leaguers to learn how to be a good major leaguer. That is true all over. The very rare instances when a guy comes up from the minors and he's an all-star right away. You need to, there is a learning curve there. It is the hardest learning curve in baseball. The second hardest is single A to double A. Nothing can compare to the triple A to major league jump. That's why you have those 4A players, the guys that are too good for AAA but not good enough for the major leagues. They find out by being in the majors and trying to learn how to hit major league pitching or pitch to major league hitters. You need to be able to learn it. Now, I'm in the camp that, yes, this is a small sample size for Tyler Wade, but if, let's say, in the middle of May, he is still not hitting, he hasn't started turning things around, then I would say, all right, let's send him down, get regular bats in the minors, see if it's a confidence issue, and if it's not, we'll give him a chance later in the year. As far as Torres goes, the problem with starting Torres is we don't know what type of player he'll be if he plays every day. He's a very rare instance of a guy that could come off the bench and hit 300 off the bench. You don't see that very often, and it's tough. That's probably tougher than anything to do because you usually need consistent at-bats to stay sharp. And that's one of the reasons why Tyler Wade struggled last year is because he had no consistent at-bats. So if he can do that, that might be a little bit more valuable right now to the Yankees as a pinch hitter later in the game and being able to move around. But again, it all comes down to if the rest of that lineup is doing what they're going to do, you're not going to worry about Tyler Wade hitting 200 or hitting a $190. You're going to be focusing on those guys mashing, because they'll put up all the offense you need, and we've seen it in a few games so far, where if the guys that are supposed to be hitting well, if they're hitting well, this team is unstoppable. And but to me, pitching is more of the issue.
Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of strong points from you guys. So patience is definitely going to be a virtue while these young guys are figuring it out, and while some of these other guys are just banged up. So patience is going to be the theme until we can get a full team back on the field. And we ask you to be patient while we get a word from our sponsors. Attention cancer victims. If you or a loved one lived, worked, or visited Lower Manhattan in the months after the 9/11 attacks and have been diagnosed with cancer, federal benefits and health care may be available. Attorney Eddie Markowitz has helped many families recover substantial benefits from the September 11th Victims Compensation Fund. The James Zadroga Health and Compensation Act has been extended, but time is limited. Attorney Markowitz is proud to serve as counsel to the Zadroga family. Let him help you too. These benefits are not just for rescue workers, but to anyone who qualifies. The fund covers many cancers, including prostate, skin, lung, and breast. Please call 1-800-LAW-HELP. That's 1-800-LAW, HELP, to see if you qualify. And we are back. Thank you, guys. And so is Gleyber-Mania. So after a subpar spring training and a slow start to the year, number one prospect Gleyber Torres is starting to shake off the rust and play to his potential. Torres is slashing .385, .405, and .564 in 14 games for the Scranton Rail Riders in AAA. With Miguel Andujar looking like he could use more seasoning, he's starting to figure it out a little bit. And Gleyber Torres playing the last 5 to 6 games at third base is a promotion on the horizon. That's what everyone wants to know. So we can turn it right to our expert, Tommy. What can you tell us about Gleyber Torres?
Well, Gleyber has been killing it, to say the least. I mean, he came right out of the gate. His first couple of games, I don't think he had a hit, but he just absolutely turned it around. And to be honest with you, I didn't expect him to do it so soon, mostly because, he got a very small taste of AAA, where you're going to be seeing a lot of a small taste of guys that have been able to play in the majors, because you have the veterans and more veterans in AAA. So I thought that there was going to be more of a learning curve for him, but just like when he went up to Trenton, he's killing it immediately. He's a guy that we all knew was going to be a call up at some point. I know that everybody's talking about the date this week that he's going to be able to be with the team for an extra year of control. So that was always a target. But yeah, Andujar has struggled mightily, but he is starting to pick it up. So I think that that's really going to determine what happens here with Gleyber, because if Andujar starts to hit well, they really don't have much of a pressing need for him, and then they could continue to let him get his feet wet in AAA and work out whatever they want him to work out on. I know one thing that's kind of been lacking in his game is his base running, but last night he overran third and ended up getting picked off. So it's something, just minor things like that you're going to want to tweak before you get up to the majors. And I think we all know the Yankees do not need any more base running blunders, because there's been a lot of them this year. But he's young. He's a guy that is still learning. He's still a kid. So I think that he's going to get called up soon. But I think that if Miguel Andujar continues to hit, he's going to stay down a little bit longer, and it affords the Yankees that opportunity to do it. But if Andujar still struggles and Tyler Waite still struggles, then they might not have a choice. So that would be what I would really watch for, to see if he's going to get called up or not.
And that's good. I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people are just assuming that he's just a finished product. With a guy who has the talent and the ceiling of Gleyber, you definitely don't want to get into a promotion and demoting him. When he comes up, I'm pretty sure that the Yankees are going to want him to stick. So Rob, what do you think about Gleyber's torrid start to the season, and fans for the most part clamoring to get him promoted and get him up there?
Well, I'm a big Gleyber fan. I was one of the people that said I had no problem him becoming the starting second baseman for opening day if he performed well. He struggled in spring training, getting his feet wet again after Tommy John surgery and missing most of last season. He went to AAA and is off to a hot start. When I saw him in minor league spring training, he looked great as well. So I don't think it's an issue in regards to him being ready, because I think he is ready. I think it's an issue of them just wanting to make sure when they call him up, he's up for good and he's not going to be optioned back down ever again. They just want to make sure he's going to stick. And they know right now that if they call him up with this team how it is right now, there's going to be so much pressure on him that it could affect how he plays, and it could affect that plan of whether he stays in the big leagues or not. That's why I'm saying if you give Wade until mid-May, I'm not going to say June, July, because that's too late in the season. Mid-May, you'll have over a month of games, and if he's still not hitting and he's not turning it around, I want to see Gleyber up there. Now, if Gleyber comes up tomorrow, great. I actually would like to see that too. Again, like I said, I think he's ready. But it's the Yankees wanting to make sure that when he's up there, he's going to stick. And I know we all saw that article recently where they said, they don't want to do it because they don't want to be that blatantly obvious about the playing time rule. I don't think the Yankees really care about that rule in regards to getting extra year of control. They would just want to make sure they have the best team on the field. And if Gleyber Torres is the best player, Gleyber Torres will be up there. And if Gleyber Torres is going to be good enough where he's going to stick and not struggle like Tyler Wade, he's going to be up there. That's what they're looking for. And I just don't think it's just because of playing time or service time.
And if I could actually throw in there too, the other thing that you got to remember is if he does come up, he's not going to play shortstop, which is his natural position. So you also want to make sure that he's comfortable at the position that he's going to, because if you're going up and you're not used to third base or you're not used to second base, then you're probably going to struggle because that's going to be in your mind. So that could affect your other side of the ball. So I think that's the other thing. They want to make sure that he's going to be able to handle whatever position they put him at every day. And to be honest with you, he started the year off this year playing shortstop a couple games, and the plan was to move him between short and second, according to Bobby Mitchell. But the last week or so, he's been playing third base to see how he does there. And obviously, what's happening within the organization is forcing them to do that. But so I think that's another part of the game that you want to make sure that he's going to be ready to do, or else it could really affect him on both sides of the ball.
Well, I want to chime back in real quick because I think one of the reasons they having him play third a lot is just so he gets used to the hot corner and get used to plays over there. Because when he does come up, he might move around a bit. Because you might end up seeing Miguel Andujar get some time at first in the big leagues, Tyler Wade play at second, and Gleyber at third, just to make sure you get those guys in the lineup and give other guys a rest. We don't know what's going to happen with Bird. Tyler Austin has been doing great. He's one of the few bright spots for this team. But you never know what's going to happen. Yankees just re-signed Adam Lind, so you don't know what's going to happen there either. So I think they want to make sure they have some versatility there with Gleyber and him playing second, short, and third. And I don't think second's going to be that much of a stretch. It's his least played position now in the minors, but I think it's just going to be a natural transition for him.
Matt, what do you have to add?
I think Tommy and Rob hit the nail on the head. There's not much left to really add to it, to be honest with you. I think to put it in a short sentence, I think Gleyber-Mania is forever when they bring him up. They want him to come up and they don't want it to end. They want to know that he's ready, and if they bring him up, they don't want to have, like Rob said, a situation with Tyler Wade where they give him a short period of time and he doesn't hit, and they're not going to want to have to send him back down to AAA. So the expectations on this kid are huge. To handle the city, to handle coming up and making your big league debut in the biggest city in the world on a team that's struggling right now and is probably going to rely on him a little bit more than they would to say if they bring him up in late May or early June when you have some of these guys back and healthy where the expectations on him aren't so high. He's going to be actually forced to contribute early on if he comes up here, say, in the next couple of days. So it's really hard to say when he's going to come up. really never know what the Yankees are thinking, to be honest with you. They could come and surprise you when he's up in the morning, or it wouldn't shock me if he comes up sometime in May. It's just a matter of what they think his comfort level is. And as far as playing all the positions, and like they said, he's probably going to have to play some third. He's probably going to have to play some second. Two positions that he's not necessarily familiar with, like Tommy alluded to, shortstop is his natural position. So I think they're just getting him acclimated to fit into any situation that they may have to throw him into, depending on where they're at when they have to call him up. So I think he's going to be up sooner than later. I think Rob said mid-May would make the most sense, and I kind of agree with that timeline, especially considering, like Tommy said, he came out of the gate like wildfire, kind of like he did in Trenton last year. Made his Double-A debut, and he never skipped a beat. Hit right off the bat, and they brought him up to Triple-A sometime right around mid-May. Just enough time to get his feet wet in Double-A to prove that he was back and he was ready to go. So I think if he plays till mid-May and he maintains this, that they know he's for real and that he's ready to rock and roll to come up to the bigs. So mid-May would make sense to me if all things are equal, but I think you're probably going to see him before mid-May if you're asking me.
Gotcha. Yeah, all strong points, guys, and it's looking like everything's, gearing towards Gleyber making his debut very, very soon. And it's all about the message that the Yankees are sending. The Yankees are always in win-now mode, and I think that if they feel like Gleyber is going to increase their chances, we might see him up tomorrow morning, like we said. So moving right along, well, that pretty much covers what's going down in AAA. But before we hit down to AA trend, we want to remind fans to log on to PinstripeProspects.com for all of your Yankees prospect information. Our player database features player pages for all players inside of the organization. Connect with fellow fans and our staff in the Pinstripe Prospects community. Sign up for an account, and you can share your thoughts in the message boards. Get updates to your email and more. We encourage you to join. So, after skipping a level of competition, New Jersey native Ben Ruda has opened some eyes. What has impressed you so far after getting the chance to see him up close? And what has any of the coaches had to say? Matt?
He just does so many things well. He's not necessarily one of those guys that you're going to see on the top prospect lists. He's not going to be in the Baseball America top 10, probably not even the top 30. He's not that type of player, but he's that system player that the odds are always going to be stacked against him. Late draft pick from a small school, really not much invested in him by the organization, and he just goes out there and plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's the type of the player I would describe him almost like a Ben Gamble, a Slade Heathcott, that type of player that's come through the system that they may not be a 30 home run hitter. They're not going to be a 100 RBI type guy, but they just play solid defense. He could play all three outfield positions, and he plays them at an above average level. He has above average speed, so he can steal some bases. He's already stolen 2. And he told me early in the season that was one of the things that he worked on a lot this winter was that he knows, and the organization knows, that he has above average speed, but he's always had an issue with the first 2 or 3 steps because he has such a long stride. So he's tried to work on his first couple steps as far as breaking from the bag to swipe a bag. And it seemed to be paying dividends for him so far. So just a consistent hitter. He's leading the Eastern League now after today in hitting. He's hitting .455 after 10 games. 6 of those have been multi-hit efforts. He's been one of the few bright spots in an offensive unit that's really pretty weak all the way around. So he's really opened up some eyes. Jay Bell, actually Ruda and Jay Bell both talked about in spring training. Ruda was kind of picking his brain as to Ruda's obviously now jumped high A, came straight from low A up to double A, skipping a level, and obviously he came out of Wagner and played in Staten Island and Charleston. So this is a guy with limited minor league experience, and he kind of told Jay Bell that, listen, I've been playing now. This is my 3rd season, and I'm going into it. My routine is kind of changing every year. My approach is changing every year. And obviously Bell's a guy that's played in the bigs for 18 years, a guy that's been battle tested. He's been a Major League All-Star. He's been a World Series champion. So he just kind of picked Jay Bell as far as his regimen and what he should be doing day in and day out. And Bell told him that he obviously didn't have the same routine every single day in his career till his 12th year in the big leagues. So that's how much your routine is going to vary based on where you are in your career. So Ruda kind of took some solace in the fact from Bell that he doesn't have that same routine, and he understands that he's still developing. So he's just trying to kind of master his approach, especially for a guy that jumped high A altogether, to be hitting 455 in the first go around in Double A, where pitchers really understand the whole pitchability type deal and how to attack hitters backwards. That's really an point of emphasis when you get to Double A for pitchers. And it really hasn't shaken him at all yet. And that's been a really encouraging sign for the Thunder moving forward.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, especially when young players are thirsty for knowledge and sometimes it's hard for them to approach veterans and coaches and things like that. So it's very good to hear that Ben Ruda is soaking up all that knowledge and he's responding to skipping a level of competition. Rob and I actually had the opportunity to see Ben in minor league spring training. So Rob, what is your takeaway? Is his start surprising you to this point?
Not so much because, believe it or not, I've had the opportunity to watch Ben Ruder from his days at Wagner College all the way up to Double A. Ben played at Wagner College in Staten Island, and Wagner College plays their home games at the Richmond County Bank Ballpark in St. George, where the Staten Island Yankees play. So at those games, the Yankees have the opportunity to fire up the TrackMan system and get a lot of advanced data on all these college players, and they use that opportunity as much as they can. Ruda is probably a prime example of that. They had a lot of advanced information on this kid while during the draft, and they liked what they saw. I believe it was like 20th round, if I remember correctly offhand. I
think it was the 30th round.
It's somewhere around there, but they had the opportunity to draft, and they took it. He was a bit of an older prospect. He's an older draftee, so he doesn't have as much time as a lot of the other guys. He's always been older for his competition. He struggled a little bit in his first year, just getting acclimated to professional baseball, which is completely normal. Last year, he was starting to really hit his stride when he got hurt, and then he came back in spring training this year, and he looked really good in spring training. I liked what I saw from him. I'm sure you did too, Omari, and I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see him completely skip high A. I'm not going to say never happens. It does rarely happen, but never to the point where the guy that skipped it is having this much success and leading the Eastern League in hitting. And I think Ruda is just a great kid to begin with, and he's just It's just incredible to see what he's done so far for the Yankees and for the Thunder.
And just to build off of Rob's point, like he said, it's impressive when a kid skips that level, and he probably honestly only skipped that level. I think he expected to start the year in Tampa, skips the level because of all the injuries in the system. And this is just a prime example of taking advantage of the opportunity that you probably wouldn't have been granted otherwise unless a bunch of other people didn't get hurt. But here's a case now where you trade J. Cave and Blash, and McKinney has to come up, and all these other guys are hurt. Zach Zahner now has to go up. So you're just missing guys at every level, and somebody's got to go up and fill that spot. So gave Ruda the opportunity to completely skip a level, and probably didn't expect him to thrive at the level that he has. But he's kind of just taken it and run with it. And there's no looking back. I don't think there's any way now that you could, even if you get somebody back here healthy in the next week or two, I don't think you could conceivably take Ruda out of the lineup and send him down to Tampa. I think he proved that, and he believes that he does. I think he's proved that he belongs here in some type of role moving forward.
Oh, just to touch on something real quick, I'm glad you brought up Zach Zahner, because I think Ruder and Zahner are sort of similar players to some degree, and I think they both are guys that you're not really going to hear a lot about. They're under the radar sleeper prospects, so to say, and they are guys that I think are just incredible. I talked before about how Zahner was one of Gary Denbo's favorite prospects in the system. And Ruder, I think, is just another player in that mold.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, definitely. I got the opportunity to see Ben Rutter, and I got to meet his aunt, met his dad. So the Rutters do travel well, and I'm glad to see that Ben's having some success because he's definitely a grinder. He's a hard worker. Matt, I think those the players that you mentioned that he's in the mold of definitely fits his game, and it's really great to see. Another Thunder player that's off to a strong start is Dylan Tate. Now, Dylan Tate, obviously, he was the former number 4 overall pick, came over in the Beltran trade. And this Thunder rotation with Domingo Acevedo, Justice Sheffield, there's a lot of talent. And Tate is actually starting to rise to the forefront. In 10 innings, he has 9 strikeouts, hasn't surrendered a walk, and he's 1-0. And I just want to get your take and just kind of let the fans know, like, how is Dylan Tate look to you?
You kind of hit the nail on the head in going through his stat line. The 0 walks is the key for Dylan Tate. He came up for a cup of coffee last year, and the control wasn't there. I think that's been his issue for a lot of his. I mean, he's still young. But for his juncture in pro ball, he's struggled with the command a little bit. I think the key for him moving forward is going to be pounding the zone and commanding his secondary stuff. I mean, the fastball is above average, and he's just been throwing all of his pitches for strikes. And when you have a guy that's that talented pitching in the Eastern League against these guys, it's tough to hit, especially here in the early going while it's cold. Guys are a little bit tight. They're not loose yet. And he's just been going after hitters and attacking them, pitching backwards a lot. He's been setting them up with the breaking ball early and then going at them with the fastball. So he's just looked like a completely different guy than he did when I saw him for a little while last year. It's almost like he got rushed a little bit to Double-A last year, and this is obviously the first year too where he's completely healthy coming into a season where you didn't have to worry about injuries or anything with him. So it's been a really impressive start, and of the big guns that you talked about in Acevedo, Sheffield, and Tate, he's been the most impressive one of the 3 in the early going here so far.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see that he's worked on his game and he's worked on his body too. The first day of spring training, Rob, we actually got a chance to see him, so this probably isn't a surprise to us. But what is Tate's performance in this early going has shown you?
Well, it shows to me that the Yankees got a steal. This is a kid that was the 4th overall pick in the draft a few years back, and he's just an incredible talent, and they got him for practically nothing, really. And he's just a good pitcher. I think he's got the potential to be a starter in the big leagues, especially with what he's shown so far this season and last season. I think a good season was pretty much needed for him to really cement his prospect status and the potential to be a starter in the big leagues, and I think that's what he's given.
Yeah, definitely. Coming into this season, I know a lot of people were saying that maybe Dylan Tate probably wouldn't stick as a starter. But as we can see, Matt, I'm pretty sure you've seen it looks like he's worked on his body. From my eyes alone, it looks like he put on at least 10 pounds of good lean muscle. So I'm sure that's helped him a little bit. And that's going to help him stick as a starter going forward. And that's really probably what the Yankees envision him as. So that's good on his part, and that's always great to see. Moving right along, guys. I mean, we're going to introduce a new segment on this week's podcast. Mailbag questions. So we want some fan involvement. We want to get, some feedback from you guys so we can answer some of the pressing questions that you guys probably have. So what we did, we decided to reach out to members of a couple Yankees fans group on Facebook and ask the members to submit some prospect questions for our panel. So we just want to give a big shout out and a great thank you to Yankees Daily and Yankees discussion groups on Facebook for participating to the first Pinstriped Prospects Mailbag. All right. So let's see. The first question that we have is going to be from Jordan V. Okay. Would like to learn more about this Rogers kid at AAA and Whitlock at Single-A Charleston. So the players that Jordan is talking about that he's referring to is Josh Rogers, the left-handed pitcher at AAA, and Garrett Whitlock, Single-A at Single-A Charleston. So Rob, what can you tell us about those players?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about Whitlock, and I could bring Tommy and Matt on about Rogers because they've gotten to see him recently. Whitlock is a guy that his recent draftee, he was drafted last year, and he's a guy that I got to see for the first time really in spring training this year, and boy was I impressed. Most importantly, I was impressed with how fast this kid works, and that's something is important for a pitcher because you work fast, you control the tempo of that game, and you can really keep the hitters off balance because you never know when they're ready. He's a three-pitch guy. He has a fastball, slider, changeup. He's sitting mostly in 92, 94 mile-an-hour range with his fastball. He's can get that up a little higher to 95, 96 on occasion, but he's got really pretty good control. And right now, his best secondary pitch is that changeup that he has, and that's his out pitch. Really, he's primarily a fastball changeup guy with that slider as well, and he's developing that slider to be even better. And so he's a kid that I think could move pretty quickly throughout the farm system. If he continues what he's doing right now in Single A Charleston, he will be in Tampa by mid-year.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to getting to get some eyes on him. Tommy, what can you tell us about Josh Rogers?
Yeah, well, Josh is just one of those pitchers who is not going to overpower you. He's got to do it with location and secondary stuff. His fastball is high 80s, low 90s, and the key for him is to locate his fastball. When he's locating the fastball, then the rest of the stuff is going to play for him. And he started the year, this is his first season with AAA, and when the season was about to start, everybody expected, and himself included, that he was going to end up starting the year in the bullpen, which is something that he's never done before. But what ended up happening was the injury bug hit the Yankees, and Cesa and Herman had to go up, so they needed a starter. So Game 2, Josh Rogers is thrust into starting that day. So he came out, he was a little rusty in the first inning, but ever since then, he's just been absolutely on fire. From what I saw for him, sometimes he can get a little bit high with the fastball, but the slider is there. It could be a really good pitch for him when he's on. But he's a guy who will pound the zone and he'll work quickly. So one thing he's a very gutsy player. So when he is starting to feel it, he's going to attack you and he's going to work very quickly. And he's going to get a lot of contact, probably not that many strikeouts, but he's one of those players. I don't know where he'll end up being or translate, but if he can really locate his pitches, he can be very successful. So that'll be something to watch for him as he continues to develop with AAA here.
Nice. Matt, I see you nodding in agreement. What can you add about Josh Rogers?
It's actually funny because I haven't had the opportunity to see Josh Rogers pitch all that much. If you recall, he tore it up, started the year with Tampa last year, got the promotion to Trenton, and I think he only made 5 or 6 starts for Trenton, and I think only 1 or 2 of them were at home. So I have very limited eyes on him as far as the type of pitcher that I've seen before he got hurt and had to have surgery and shut it down last year. But I did get the opportunity when we were doing our Pinstriped Prospect profiles during the course of the offseason. I actually talked to Josh on the phone for about 45 minutes winter, and we actually text just kind of keeping in touch for story purposes during the season. And it's a very hungry player. He obviously thought he was probably going to start the year in Trenton. So the bump, he pretty much skipped Double-A. If you look at the career line, he went from high A Tampa, made 7 starts at Double-A in his career, got hurt, and now he's in Triple-A without repeating Double-A or even rehabbing and going back to Double-A. So he's kind of thrust into an advanced level that he's never pitched at, and he's kind of figuring out. And then, like Tommy said, he thought he'd be in to start the season, and then need put him back in the rotation where I think he's most comfortable. But I like the word that Tommy used. The best word I could describe him is the word Tommy used is guts. He knows he doesn't have that mid-90s fastball. He's well aware. He talks about it openly. But he plays to his strengths, which is advanced command, especially given his age. He's a guy that was a mid-rotation starter at Louisville. So he's pitched in high-leverage games all throughout his college career, and he got by on guts, locating that fastball and playing everything off of it. So to be successful, he kind of gets the adrenaline rolling once he starts locating, and he works very fast once Tommy said it perfectly. I couldn't describe it any better. A guy that just kind of pitches off of guts, high 80s, low 90s fastball, and as long as he locates it, his secondary stuff is good enough to play off of that. And as long as he's locating, there's no reason why he can't be successful at the AAA level.
Definitely. Great points, guys. Next question comes from Yankees discussion group. A gentleman asks, do you think Germán is the real deal? How do you think his stuff will translate in a full-time MLB role? And we're just going to swing it right to Rob. What can you tell us a little bit about Domingo Germán and if his stuff will translate?
Well, I think we've seen already that he can be a pretty good major league pitcher. The question is whether that could be as a starter or as a reliever. Me personally, I see him as a reliever / spot starter. So I think he's probably going to be in that big bullpen towards the back end where he could probably close out some games for you, but mostly like 7th or 8th inning guy. And that said, I also right now at this point in his career, being so young, that he'll get some spot starts, but I think ultimately he'll be in the back of that bullpen.
Okay, Tommy, what do you have to add? I see you smiling.
Yeah, no, I really like Domingo Germán. He is a pitcher that the first time I saw him, the thing I thought was he looks just like a Von Nova on the mound. His stuff is there. I think his secondary stuff is excellent, and the thing with him is he just got to learn how to command it. I personally think that he could be a middle of the rotation starter, but if not, I could see him playing out of the bullpen. The stuff is major league capable. It's just a matter of, can you put it together? Can you locate? Can you command the pitches? And honestly, I don't think he's really gotten that much of a chance to show that yet. I mean, out of the bullpen, yes, and I think he's been pretty solid out of the bullpen. But he's a kid that I think deserves a start or two to see if he can do it, because I could easily see him end up as a 4th or 5th starter. And if you could harness the raw stuff that he does have, he's going to be very successful. So, but Nova is the one guy who really stuck in my mind, because he's another one. If he just learns how to control that awesome stuff that he has, he's going to be very successful. So that's where I kind of liken Germán. He's not going to be a 1 or a 2, but can he be successful and a good, serviceable major league pitcher? Absolutely.
Definitely. I agree. Matt, what do you have to add about Domingo Germán? What have you seen?
Stuff is absolutely major league, plays to the big leagues perfectly. Swing roll is perfect for him if that's the way they see it. I'm of the mind that I think he could be a successful mid-rotation, back end of the start of the rotation type starter, and I think he'd be fine. I'm like Tommy. I would like to see him get a little bit of a look as a starter, because he really hasn't been afforded that opportunity. We've seen what he could do out of the pen. The stuff plays, and I think he would thrive in that role moving forward, but you don't know what ultimately he could be as a starter. And I think obviously any player increases the value if they're as a starter as opposed to a reliever. So I think you maximize his potential if he could start and go out there every 5 days and give you 6 or 7 strong innings, as opposed to pitching him an inning or two once or twice a week as a kind of a spot starter, mop-up type guy. So I think either way, the stuff plays no matter what role you want to put him in. It's just a matter of him affording the opportunity or based on what the Yankees see from him. Wherever they see fit to put him, I think he could thrive in either role. I think moving forward, he's probably going to end up in the pen just based on the way the Yankees have kind of treated him in the time he's been in the system. He's kind of a guy like Rogers. He started the late year in AA last year, and he didn't make more than 4 or 5 starts in Trenton before they bumped him up to AAA. So he's a guy that they moved pretty quickly, a guy who's had surgery already, and he moved quickly through. So I think, like I said, they've moved him along in the minors as a starter, but when they bring him up, it's usually out of the pen. So I think he's stretched out to fill either role. But I would definitely like to see them give him more of an opportunity as a starter, because I think the fastball, as long as he commands it, starter.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely in agreement with you guys. I think the only thing missing from Germán's game is better command of his breaking pitch. I think, right now, I think it'll be tough for him to remain a starter, being a 2-pitch pitcher. But if he can get that breaking pitch, the curveball down, I think that he could be definitely at minimum, a back end guy. We're going to move on to Frank T's question. simply put, what is going on with first-round pick Kyle Holder? I'll answer this question, guys. We honestly don't know. The Yankees have been very hush about injuries, if it's Holder or if it's Nolan Martinez or a bunch of other guys. So once we find out, we'll relay that information. We'll put it on the site and have it available to you guys. But as of right now, major league teams don't have to disclose minor league injuries, and the Yankees have not done that. Next question comes from Raul A. Do you think the 37-year-old veteran left-hander Oliver Perez has anything left? He's been unhittable in 4 games at AAA. So it's a AAA question. We go right to our AAA expert. Tommy, what do you got?
Yeah, I think he's done it before at the major league level, so I wouldn't be surprised that if he gets a look at the majors and just to see, how that plays. I mean, at the very least, he could be a left-handed specialist. But the interesting thing about Oliver Perez, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think he's just confusing the hell out of the players at AAA because he doesn't use the same windup every time. He's got about 3 or 4 that I've seen. I think I've seen 4 different windups that he uses. So one pitch, he's coming at your sidearm. The next pitch, he's stopping with a pause in the middle of his windup. Next, he's pulling a Louis Tion turn, and I mean it's really it's befuddling to the hitter. So I think that possibly they're just not used to seeing that. So I would say that could he be a serviceable major leaguer? Absolutely. He's done it before, but who knows? I'm sure he'll be used at some point this year.
Yeah. With all the injuries that's been going on, I would not be surprised to see Oliver Perez pitching for the Yankees. Next question. This is just kind of a fun question, and we got this one from the Yankees discussion group. They want to get our personal favorites, just any prospects that personally we like, guys that we're really rooting for. So, Matt, I'll start with you.
I think Rob kind of alluded to it earlier. I'm a big Zach Zahner fan in covering him last year. I'm obviously don't pick up rooting interests in covering a team, but there's certain guys that you just watch them work every day and see the heart and the passion and the hustle and the grind that they put into it every day. There's guys that aren't high draft picks and guys that aren't bonus babies with their pockets loaded who could kind of walk away from the game in 5 or 6 years and still have a living. This is a kid who's had to grind and work for everything that he's gotten. He's really working on. I know the Yankees have told him, and he admits that the Yankees want him to increase his power, especially playing in a corner outfield spot, because everything else is there. The bat is there, the gap power, the doubles. It's all there. You can play any of the positions out there at a decent level defensively, but they told him that they need to see more home runs for him in order to get to where he ultimately wants to be. But just a guy who goes out there, gives that hustle, gives that passion, gives that fire. You kind of just get behind watching. So he's definitely one of my favorite guys to cover. Another one he's in the bigs now, but a guy that I've always rooted for kind of from that same cloth is Tyler Austin. It's just a humble kid. Spent a lot of time in AA. I've been in the clubhouse where the Yankees have DFA'd him off the 40-man roster. I believe that was in late 2014, at the end of 2014, or it could have been 2015. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I was in the clubhouse when the kid got DFA'd, and it's once one of their top 10 prospects and DFA'd and obviously overcome testicular cancer as a young kid. To see him reach a high and then to reach a low in battling wrist injuries in his early time in AA. To see him come and thrive now at the major league level is really rewarding to see all of his hard work paying off. So probably just in the last couple of years, Tyler Austin and definitely Zach Zahner are 2 guys that you kind of get behind it and enjoy watch playing.
Definitely solid choices, and I'm a big Tyler Austin fan because he charged the mound last week. Tommy, who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to just give that shout out to Tyler Austin as well, because I mean he's been through everything, and it's amazing to think about how long he's actually been around in the organization, and he's still 25, 26 years old, and now he's getting his chance. So that's definitely something that we can all be happy for, people who've covered him. But the one player that I would really like to see get his opportunity is Kyle Higashioka. Kyle can really He can really play. He's got the bat. It's really come around the last year or so, and he's showing that he can be consistent with it. And he plays great defense. He's a grinder. And the one thing that I really pull off of him is he is a great guy, and he is just a grinder out there. Like he's extremely intelligent. When you talk to him, he'll give you in-depth, analyzation about whatever you want to know, whether it's the pitchers, his own game, and he's just one of those guys that is working hard and not on everybody's radar, but eventually I think that he could be a pretty good major leaguer. So I would really like to see him, and I would also like to give another little mention to Ryan McBroom. He's another one who really not on anybody's radar. He came over for Robert F. Snyder, but he's one of those guys who is currently doing what he has to do in order to be successful and make him more valuable in the major leagues. He's playing the outfield, and just a solid all-around guy. So just from my perspective, I don't know what will happen with those guys, but I think that it would be nice to see them at least get their opportunity.
Nice. Solid choices. Rob, what do you have to add?
Well, I think over the last few podcasts I've been on, I think I've pretty much made it clear my pick for one of my favorites in the organization. That's Abital Avellino. And we've seen so far in AAA what he's doing. Completely under the radar. Everyone's focusing on Torres, but Avellino is literally right there with him doing almost the exact same, offensively, and he's more versatile. And he's a guy that I think is just completely under the radar and could be a productive major leaguer. I've talked about him extensively throughout podcasts and a few other things that I've done, but he's definitely one of my favorites. If we want to go lower in the organization, there's guys on, Trenton, one of the guys that's one of my personal favorites, Jose Mesa Jr. He had a chance. He was taking a Rule 5. He had a chance to work out with the Orioles. And also Ben Reuter is one of my favorites, mostly because he's just a good kid. Same with Zenner. Zenner's also one of my personal favorites just because he's a good kid. I think he's a good ball player as well. And in addition to that, there's a few other guys that I really like, and that's in Tampa. I'm going to go with Brandon Wagner. He's another guy that's hitting really well right now for Tampa. And in Charleston, I'm going with David Metzgar. He's a guy I got to see for the first time in spring training, and I was just wowed by the at-bats he put together in spring training. And he's not hitting that good right now, but I think he's going to be able to put it together for the Charleston River Dogs shortly.
Nice. Solid choices. My guys, I think it's going to be pretty easy. I've talked about this guy. I've done an article on him. Isaiah Gilliam. I think that he's one of those underrated prospects, and he's kind of making a name for himself right now. He's playing in the same outfield as Esteban Florio, but he's just, he's making a name for himself. So he's hitting 360. He's, leading the team in RBIs. He's a switch hitter, pretty athletic kid, and he's doing a great job. So I think that, he's a name that fans and scouts alike are definitely going to start to notice. Another guy I want to talk about is the third baseman, Angel Aguilar. The bat is starting to come around. He's hitting around 265 right now. I spoke with Pat Osborne yesterday, and we both talked about hit the glove over there. The kid is a defensive whiz. I mean, the first game and the first series in Lakeland, I counted. He made 4 diving stops. I mean, just phenomenal player. And yesterday he had a hustle double on a ball hit up the middle. And I think that guys like that are just you just root for guys like that. So it's really good to see. But to the fans, if you belong to a Facebook group, Yankees message board, or Reddit, and you want to be a part of the next mailbag segment, just reach out to our producer, Rob Pimpsner, at rob@pinstripedprospects.com. And that is going to be all for us this evening. I just want to thank all of you for joining us for episode 51 of the Pinstriped Prospects Podcast. Be sure to visit the site. We are updating and adding information daily. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Velocity Fire Sports Bar and Grill. On behalf of tonight's illustrious panel and our producer, editor-in-chief, Robert Pimpsner, I'm your host, Amari Brown, signing out. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you.